Toronto. VK on the beat. Check. I'm in Toronto where you wanna get a city love. I'm from Toronto where you wanna get a city love. I'm in Toronto like we wanna get a city love. My city love me back for my city love.
Welcome to episode 1458 of Toronto Mic'd, proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery, a fiercely independent craft brewery who believes in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. Order online for free local home delivery in the GTA. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. The Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team. The best baseball in the city outside the Dome with 8 championships since 1967. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. The Advantaged Investor Podcast from Raymond James Canada. Valuable perspective for Canadian investors who want to remain knowledgeable, informed, and focused on long-term success. And Ridley Funeral Home. Pillars of the community since 1921. Today, making his Toronto Mike debut is Rob Butler. Welcome, Rob.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
And you got the East York Collegiate hoodie on. East York represent. So you're born in East York?
I was born in East York, born and raised. Maine and Danforth punk, as they used to call us when we were kids. And yeah, what a great place to grow up, man. I was so lucky. The neighborhood I grew up in, full of athletes, full of us poor kids running around, just hoping we get a tennis ball for Christmas, and we could make wonders, miracles happen with the tennis ball.
So when you were growing up in East York and you're playing baseball there, and I want to shout out Chris Cooksey and Mike Ross, who they were coaching with the East York baseball, and Mike Ross is the public address announcer for the Toronto Maple Leafs hockey team. Is that a wild coincidence?
Yeah, it is.
So, and Chris Cooksey, he hosts a podcast for Raymond James Canada called The Advantaged Investors. So shout out to Cooksey, shout out to Mike Ross, shout out to East York. I have a message for you, Rob, from my buddy Elvis. Elvis is not his real name, but he says, tell Rob that Charlie Monaco says hi.
Good Charlie. Charlie lives on my street.
Is that right?
Going to be a future baseball legend.
Did you know I call Perry Elvis?
I did not know that, but he does have that on his license plate.
Yeah.
I do notice that when I walk by with my dog every night. I see his license plate. They're a great family, man.
So you're living in the dirty schwa near Elvis. That's a fun fact.
Yeah, so obviously I grew up in Toronto, spent most of my life there.
Yeah.
But, as things evolved and, being able to afford life, I decided to move out to Durham, and I met my wife out there, and we bought a little house up in North Oshawa, and it's been fantastic ever since.
So Elvis, who is a regular on this program, good friend of mine, he talks about having a Costco room. Like he's got a room in his house where he just puts he buys large quantities of toilet paper and stuff, and he stores it in the Costco room. That's the kind of real estate we're talking about in Oshawa. Am I right?
Well, they built a Costco basically in our backyard. So anybody who lives up near Winfield's farm is celebrating every day. And now I know where to go when I run out of toilet paper and paper towels. I'll be at Perry's house for sure.
And I'm sure he's got 100 tubes of toothpaste in that Costco room. I can tell. So Elvis, invite me back to North Oshawa, and then I can knock on Rob Butler's door and say hello. So we'll make that happen. Okay, so small world, a lot of small world stories here. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm aching to go back to 1993 with you, but I need to first let everybody know you're managing the Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team.
Yes. The Inter-County League was a staple in my life also as when I was a kid. I loved looking at the highlights in the paper, back when we used to read newspapers when we were kids,
right.
What was happening with Maple Leafs baseball team and Inter-County in general. And, Bill Bykowski and Rod Heisler and all these guys that were in the league back then, they were my childhood heroes along with the Blue Jay players. So it was kind of a dream of mine to play in that league. And as it all happened, when I was 18, I wasn't eligible to play for Toronto. I actually had to play my first games in the IBL for Stratford. I had to drive.
What's their nickname, Stratford?
They were the Stratford I don't know.
Okay.
Crazy people?
Stingrays? I don't know.
The Stratford Hillers.
Hillers,
Sorry.
okay,
Yes.
good,
What am I saying? How could I forget that?
Well, it's all that trivia. By the way, I got a book full of trivia like that. I know you've probably got a copy, but that's the Toronto Maple Leafs history book, and guests have been loving it when I hand it out, so you'll probably find out about Stratford in there. But please continue that story, because I want to ask you about playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs in the IBL back in, I guess, 2001.
Yeah, so I always wanted to play for the Leafs, but I couldn't. So for 2 years, I actually had to play up in Stratford. And it's funny because I didn't even have, I shouldn't be admitting this, but I didn't have a driver's license back then. I didn't get my driver's license until I was halfway through being 20 years old before I went to pro ball. And I was driving to Stratford with my brother in the car, who was 15 years old. My brother, Rich.
Wow.
Who loved watching all my games when I was playing anywhere, to be honest.
Hell of a ball player himself.
Oh, my God. I don't know. He says I'm the reason he made it to the big leagues, and I always say he's the reason I made it to the big leagues. Or did I say that properly? We helped each other make it to the big leagues, playing numerous thousands of Burby games against the wall with the tennis ball against each other as growing up.
What did you call those games?
Burby.
Okay,
So
is
it's a game.
Is that like box? Burby. Tell me about Burby.
Yeah, so you put the strike zone on the wall,
Yeah.
The schoolyard. So we were playing at St. Bernadette or McCordick School on Coleman Avenue, and it was our playground that we would play either Burby or ball hockey with our friends in the neighborhood. But me and Rich would mostly play Burby against each other because he could literally throw a tennis ball when he was 8 years old. It felt like it was going maybe about 100 miles an hour. The guy was a superstar in the making way back when. And little did we know that playing all those games and all that hitting that we did off each other would help us with our hitting in the pros.
Who were your now we're going to get you back to the IBL. We're bouncing around a little bit because I am going to get you to 1993 too. And I have some clips from Friday's episode when Rod Black dropped by. So Rod says hi too, but I'll let him say that himself. I'm going to play clips from the just fantastic Rod Black episode on Friday. So he raised the bar for everybody. But who would be your heroes back then? Like what Canadian ball players would you emulate? Like, was there any hope and dream for a kid from East York that he could one day play in Major League Baseball?
Well, that's the funny thing about dreaming. You can be rich, poor, you can be anything you want, but you can have big dreams. And, I was so keen on the Blue Jays and any Canadian that ever played for the Blue Jays. Terry Pohl, when he was with the Houston Astros. I mean, I obviously loved Ferguson Jenkins, who is obviously a hero of every Canadian that's ever thought of even playing baseball at any level.
Right.
A legend. So I really just wanted to be like those guys, not knowing what it even meant or what it was. It was just like seeing them in the paper, seeing them on the news, seeing highlights, and I just something about baseball was in my blood from the time I was 7, 8 years old when the Blue Jays first came to Toronto, and Bob Baylor, John Mayberry, and
you
Barry
remember
Bunnell.
those? You remember those years?
Oh yeah, I followed the Blue Jays so closely. I used to keep the games. I go and buy a scorebook, and I would keep Toronto Blue Jay games, mostly especially when they played the Kansas City Royals or the New York Yankees. I loved Don Mattingly, George Brett, Willie Aikens, the Milwaukee Brewers with Robin Yount and Paul Molitor and Ben Ogilvy. Like, I used to imitate these guys when I was playing.
Did you ever think one day you'll be a teammate of Paul Molitor's?
No. I could never have thought.
That's wild.
I could never have thought that would actually happen. I actually wore my first pro year. I wore number 4. Lou Gehrig was my favorite player of all time, but Paul Molitor was my second favorite player of all time. So I wore number 4 my first year in St. Catharines when I was a baby Blue Jay, and I never dreamed that I'd ever get a chance to be his teammate, high five him after one of his home runs. Him give me a high five after I scored a run.
And let alone let's get some, because we're going to talk about this, but not just having him as a teammate playing for your beloved Toronto Blue Jays, but we're talking in the World Series, Rob. I pinch yourself, that happened.
Yeah, the more the farther away I get from that, now 30 years now, the more I realize how amazing it was. I mean, in the moment, we were jumping down, freaking out, we were jumping beans, going mental, and celebrating like you could never celebrate in your life. But the farther you get away from it, and you see how hard it is to actually be a team and make it to the World Series, it becomes more and more special because the Blue Jays haven't done it since, and they've had some good teams, so it's tough, right? And you really appreciate it more as you get older.
You were there. I'm going to play some clips that prove you were there, okay? And I'm going to play some clips from Rod and then some clips he told me to pull about you. And then we'll get back to, what we'll do is we'll get back to 93. We're going to talk about you playing in the IBL. We'll talk about you managing the Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team at Christie Pitts. We'll talk about May 12, which is the home opener this season, and what's going on. Shout out to Keith Stein. What's it like dealing with Keith Stein, new owner of the Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team?
Oh, Keith is amazing. He's got the energy. He's got the ambition and love for what he wants to do with this Maple Leaf team, and using the logo properly and getting the word out about what we're doing down there. He is the right guy that's come into this league and for this team for sure, because the league has its up and downs, and the owners like Keith will turn things around and make it more fun to be at the park. That's his ambition, is how to treat the fans properly and make sure the players are happy. So he's got all the right ways of doing things that the players are going to love and the fans are going to love.
Absolutely. Now say some words about, before I play a clip of him, say some words. I'm going to play the words. You're going to say the words about Rod Black.
Rod Black, we go way back. We go way back to my Toronto Blue Jay days. And I had a great interview with him actually after the World Series. And
okay, then I'm going to cut you off, because now I'm going to let Rod take over and we're going to play that interview, and then we'll talk about the 1993 season. You ready to hear from Mr. Black?
Yes.
Here we go.
You should actually look when you have Butsy on, Rob. Take a look at the video of Rob Butler and I'm interviewing Rob in 1993 World Series. And that's when I really kind of got to know Rob, when he played for the Blue Jays, and we became just fabulous friends at the time. And that interview to me is still one of the most favorite interviews I've ever done, because it was so raw. He was screaming out his brother Rich,
yep.
And then he doused me with so much champagne and ruined his suit. And what's so crazy? I think my mustache never got wet, but that mustache was grotesque at the time. But I will grow it back for you, Mike. For you, that's 3 for 3. That's a hat trick.
Okay, it was worth it.
So are you going to put some Are you going to put some money on this thing? So if Keith Stein, I'll tell you what. If Keith Stein donates, if he donates $500 to $1,000 to Special Olympics Canada, I will grow it back.
Okay, Rob, before I play the clip that Rod is describing of you guys talking after, Joe touches them all, I pulled that clip too. There's a lot of clips I got here. Mm-hmm. But let's just establish something. So I spoke with Keith Stein on the weekend, and Keith is happily donating that money to Special Olympics Canada. Therefore, and I urge everyone listening to make a contribution to Special Olympics Canada too, because this ensures we're going to have Rod Black's mustache back for May 12th's home opener at Christie Pitts. It's coming back, Rob.
Oh, I hope it comes back. I mean, the man is a legend with his mustache. He was legendary back then in those days. We all loved Rod. Rod is such a positive guy, and we loved when he was around. He just knew what the right questions to ask the players to make them feel comfortable and happy to do interviews with him, and I loved doing my interviews with him. He was so good to me.
Well, let's find out how your interview with him sounded in 1993.
You are looking live at a partying downtown Toronto this evening. The Blue Jays have just won, as you know, their second straight World Series. 1 million people in Yonge Street last year when the Blue Jays won it in Atlanta. There will be at least that many well into the morning in Yonge Street this year. The Blue Jays winning their second straight World Series on Joe Carter's dramatic 3-run home run in the bottom of the 9th inning. Only the second time that has ever happened that the World Series has been won on a home run in the bottom of the 9th inning. Bill Mazeroski did that the first time in 1960. We have more for you from the Blue Jays clubhouse. Let's go now to Rod Black.
How does this feel? Butlerville's going crazy. East Jordan's going crazy. All I want to say is I love you all. I love everybody Butlerville. I love everybody East Jordan. I love everybody in Canada. Woo! I know I talked to you earlier this season about your first Major League RBI. And I talked to you recently about what it was like to be in the series, to help contribute, to get a chance to play at the plate, to know that you were here and to accomplish a dream. How does that all feel?
It was a dream. It's all a dream that has come true. I can't believe what I'm feeling. I can't keep my feet still. Partway through the game, I couldn't even watch. I was so nervous about the outcome. And
I saw you in the tunnel. You didn't want to watch the game in the 7th. What did you think when Joe Carter put it out?
I was sitting on the bench and I was saying, Joe, if there's any time to do it, baby, do it now. And he did. And it's just, pandemonium. I can't even remember anything after that, just running.
Family and friends watching. A kid grows up and dreams about being here. Talk a little bit about the emotion being felt in Butlerville right now, and from your family and friends who are watching.
Well, from everyone.
And your brother.
Oh, my brother, anyone who's always supported me, and I wouldn't be here without them. To make it through all those days where you just want to give up. All those long bus rides. You're thinking, man, is it all worth it? And they've been there for me my whole career. My brother and I have been out there practicing every day, making all this happen, and it has happened. Rich, woo! I love you, Rich! Woo!
Rob Butler, very happy. Enjoy yourself tonight. Jerry Dobson, back to you.
Wow.
When was the last time you heard that?
Wow, I actually haven't heard that in entirety for a long time. I never used to listen to anything I ever did on interviews or anything. I don't like the sound of my voice. But hearing that, man,
no one likes the sound of their voice.
It makes me
except
emotional.
maybe Rod Black.
Yeah, no, it does. It brings back a lot of heavy emotion, man. Like, just really what we went through, as a family, and wow, it actually hit me a little bit there. Surprising, because it means everything to me. You know what I mean? Like my grandparents in Newfoundland, and we were from a place called Butlerville. It was actually named after my great grandparents, and we'd go back there, once a year. And they fell in love with me playing baseball. They tried to watch as much as they could. I don't even think my grandmother had a TV she could watch at one point. We had to buy her a TV. But, it was so meaningful, and it was brought up a lot. They actually talked about it in the World Series when I got on base, and they mentioned Butlerville, and Butlerville erupted into this huge, crazy thing. And East York was talked about a lot. It was just all so surreal and funny, like meant to be. Like it was crazy. Just, growing up when I was playing baseball in East York, it was just, it all accumulates, and you become a Major League Baseball player, and you're just like, how the hell did this happen? Because it wasn't really ever supposed to happen. Canadians didn't really ever make it to the big leagues, especially ones who grew up and were born playing baseball here. There's Canadians that, were born here but grew up in America.
I'm thinking like Rob Ducey. Like they were few and far between for sure. Our
Very few.
homegrown Blue Jays.
It was almost impossible because who were we playing against? I was playing house league baseball, and really had no competition. I played in the Olympics when I was 18 years old. I was just in grade 12 in East York Collegiate as a high school kid, and suddenly I'm also playing in the Olympics, and all these amazing things were on their way to happening for me. And it really comes from my parents being so supportive, driving me to all my games, my brother playing Burberry with me, my brother almost being kind of like my hitting coach when I was a kid. The guy's been so knowledgeable about hitting and throwing a baseball since I can remember. He's just so talented to be a brother, play against, and learn from. And, I was really lucky, man. I was lucky. I grew up in East York, lucky I grew up in Danforth, lucky I grew up in a tough neighborhood where we learned the ropes about grinding it out, the grind every day, and being able to manage and handle all of that. And it all ends up being so transferable when you play at at the pro level in any sport for anybody who does it. Where does that all come from? And it really comes from your childhood and learning how to grind.
You're the only Canadian player ever to have won a World Series with the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yes.
You're it.
Yeah.
That list is one guy, Rob Butler.
It is, you also have to thank the people who also put you there. Pat Gillick and Paul Beeston.
Well, let's do that then. Talk to me. So, of course, I did a little homework. I'm like, okay, let me find out when Rob. So you're signed as an amateur free agent in September 1990, but you make your MLB debut with the Toronto Blue Jays on June 12, 1993. And then you go on that season, in the regular season, you play 17 games. You had a hand injury. You batted .271 with 4 doubles and a couple of RBIs. You had a fine 17 regular season game. So tell me about, being signed as the amateur free agent. You talked about playing in St. Catharines there. And then that moment you're called up to make your major league debut, that's June 12, 1993. Just let me know what it's like. And then I'm going to play Tom Cheek calling that walk-off homer by future FOTM Joe Carter. FOTM means friend of Toronto Mike. I have in my calendar, I think it's, I want to get the right date. I think it's June 19 or something like that. I think it's June 19. I'm setting up my podcast studio at Glen Abbey Golf Course in Oakville because that is the Joe Carter Classic. And Rod Black has promised me Joe Carter will make his Toronto Mike debut. So maybe give me a vibe. Okay, you're playing for the Blue Jays. How does it all feel? Let me hear your voice. So I'll shut up for a moment.
Well, going back to when I signed in 1990, me and my brother actually signed the same day, same contract, same everything. I was 20, he was 17. He was a baby, man. I mean, this guy wasn't even shaven yet. He couldn't even grow armpit hair. It was, but he was 6'1" and about 140 pounds. But it's funny, like all of this almost did not happen because, you know, I'm a human being, and human beings have things that go on in their life, and you have struggles, and you deal with things, and sometimes you need some help dealing with things. And I didn't know that I needed some help. I was really suffering from a lot of anxiety and stress and things that were going on that I didn't really realize was going on until I became a professional. I played with Team Canada for a couple of years. I traveled around the world. I had no real issues. And then all of a sudden things started to change for me, and I was struggling a little bit. So I was really debating whether or not I was going to even sign my contract, because the Blue Jays, it's funny, the Blue Jays wanted to sign Rich at that time. They were interested in signing me when I was 18 and 19, but they lost interest when I was 20. I was kind of getting past, you know, the door was closing basically. So when they wanted to sign my brother, my dad called the Blue Jays and said, you know, Rob wants to sign. He's interested in, you know, Rich will sign. And I still remember Bob Prentice and relaying the message back to my dad that Rob can sign as long as his brother signs. So it's either going to be Rob and Rich or just Rich. So that put a little bit of reality kick in the butt check for me, that it was time to do something. Even though I was really kind of struggling with everything in my world, I did it, and we did it on September. What was the date? September 23rd.
September 24th.
September 24th. Yeah, so it was right after my dad's birthday.
Okay.
So we did it actually kind of like, my brother enticed me, said, let's do it for Dad's birthday. And I said, you know what? Okay, let's do it. So we ended up agreeing and doing it, but it would kind of go a little bit downhill for me from that point on. I had a hard time training. I even had a hard time riding the subway. I used to have a panic attack and get off the subway. My brother would be like watching me throwing up on the subway platform. And I was scuffling and didn't really understand, because people didn't understand anxiety and people didn't talk about it.
No, you're 100% right. We didn't talk about it. It's like, oh, Rob, like, man up, deal with it. Like, you know, pull through. Today, we're far more sensitive to what you were suffering from there.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it was, yeah. So there was no such thing as talking about therapy or anything like that. Like, what the hell is that? And how do you even pay for that? So I really kind of internally tried to deal with it on my own, and it didn't work.
Like, did you have a coping mechanism? So as you experience these feelings in your body, like panic attacks and anxiety, like, do you have a coping mechanism?
For me, a lot of it was music, like listening to I had my yellow Walkman that I listened to every day, like my go-to.
That was a sports Walkman.
Yeah, it was a sports
I had
Walkman.
one too.
Got me through most of my childhood, actually.
What kind of music?
Well, my favorite of all time actually is Duran Duran. My wife will be sad to hear me admit that on the radio. Yeah, no,
There's
it's
no
Duran
shame in
Duran.
that.
Yeah, no, Planet Earth.
Their
Oh my God, man.
Oh, Planet Earth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh
okay.
man, these songs. And my brother still makes fun of me about it. But you know what? And then I grew to love Metallica. Rush was a go-to, big for me.
Wow.
New Order, and I got to meet Geddy Lee. I could talk about that another time, but I got to meet Geddy Lee. So the music really helped me. But when I was a pro, I don't know, nothing could help me. I was really scuffling. I actually went to my first spring training on my own, because Rich was still in high school. Right. And I went AWOL, man. I took off. I went to my first day at the park, couldn't understand a word anybody was saying. My brain was moving way too fast. I was nauseous, ready to throw up. And I packed my bags, told my roommate, Gregor Halloran, I cannot do this. I am out of here. Wow. Walked down Highway 19, sat and hid really in a motel for 3 days.
Yeah.
And of course, there's no cell phones. I mean, I couldn't even call home and say, Mom, I'm in trouble here.
Right.
But you know, it was definitely a dark. I mean, I'm talking light about it right now, but it was dark. It was pretty scary for me.
No, I appreciate the honesty, because I think we all like write this script and it's like, oh, East York's own Rob Butler gets a pinch hit single off Kurt Schilling, and it was on the field when Joe Carter touches them all. Like, that's how we write the story. Mm-hmm. But I think it's important to talk about that. It's not all like wine and roses on the path.
No, it's not, and most of the time it isn't. Most of these guys, no, it's a long, hard struggle of certain things that go on. And for me, it was definitely things that went on that, impacted my life. And I hit it really well. I mean, I was a straight A student. I was athlete of the year multiple times. I looked like I lived a perfect life and had the perfect soul. And my soul was cracked and damaged and all broken up. So I went and hid for a little while. And I was really contemplating like really negative things because I had no way out. For me, it was like, this is it. Like, what have I done to myself? But, I was pretty damn lucky. I had some families who who got a hold of me, put their arms around me and said, you know what? The Blue Jays, said you're going to go get some therapy. We're going to work this out and figure it out. You don't have to be a baseball player, which was like the most refreshing thing I'd heard in my life. They saved my life. They really did.
Wow.
So I flew back home to Toronto.
Yeah.
I did a solid 3 months of therapy, 3-4 times a week. I can say my Dr. Bierman was my big bear, my big cuddly bear. He taught me he rebuilt my soul is what he did.
Wow.
And talking about what was bugging me and what was building up my body really is what helped me become a major leaguer, because at the end of my therapy around May, I hadn't even picked up a baseball or a bat for over a year. He's like, you know what? The Blue Jays just want to know if you want to play baseball. It's entirely up to you. You make the decision. Are you ready? If you're ready, we can work towards getting you ready to do it. And I said, yes. I said, yeah, I want to do it. So it's funny. I started actually practicing with my mom. My mom used to soft toss to me. We used to walk over to Stan Wadlow, and we had a bucket of tennis balls and a few baseballs. And my mom would soft toss to me, and my brother would catch some fly balls in the outfield. And this is how I prepared to play my first professional baseball season against first-round draft picks, guys from Florida State, Stanford.
Right.
And I went back, and I was Player of the Year in St. Catharines.
Wow.
I won a batting title.
This is quite the story. Wow.
Yeah.
So glad you got that help at a time when it wasn't, I don't know what the right terminology is, but it wasn't in vogue. It wasn't fashionable to, seek professional help and admit that you have anxiety that you need to deal with. And so your life saved at that moment, and then you decided you did want to, and I love that story. Stan, what's his name again?
Stan Wadlow?
Yeah. Shout out to my East York friends. I want to shout out, I know Bob Willett knows that park well, and he'll be here on Good Friday for another episode of Toast with Rob Pruce. So shout out to Bob Willett. But I did not know this part of your story. To me, it's like a Toronto kid makes the pros and then wins a World Series, the end, and everybody's happy along the way. But It's amazing you got that help. Yeah, no, it made all, and I didn't understand even the therapy when I was talking about what was going on in my world and what was, because you don't realize how much of your childhood builds up in your own body and how it becomes really negative if you let it, and you don't know how to deal with it. Childhood trauma is actually what it was. Yeah. And so I learned to deal with it. And what it really helped me the most, and what my therapist helped me the most, was dealing with it, how to work my way through negative thoughts and to turn my brain into thinking positively. And it really helped me be a professional athlete, and it turned my superpower on. My superpower of focus and concentration came back, which is what you actually have to have if you're going to be a professional athlete, play at the highest level. It's actually a game of concentration at any sport you play. And if you don't have it, you're doomed. And for me, I was able to find it. And, he told me to, do the things I love to do, listen to music, read books, do all these things before games that didn't let my mind race and go to where I didn't want it to go. And those are the things that I kind of did. My routine was always to stay in that positive mode and really, not let things kind of creep back into the way they used to when I was a kid. And it worked, man. 2.5 years later, I'm playing in the major leagues, after really being at the bottom, what I felt was a bottomless pit. Amazing. Now, on June 12th, 1993, do you remember your major league debut? Oh, I think I remember every time I even walked into a baseball stadium. I can tell you what happened. So, 100%. Okay. Do you remember what pitcher were you facing that first at-bat? The first at-bat was Mike Moore, and I got my hit off Tom Bolton in Detroit. And I got called up from Syracuse. Yeah. So the night before, I'm playing in front of 1,400 people, and the next night I'm playing in front of 48,000 people, which was a bit of a shocker for me because I didn't really expect to be called to the big leagues that fast, because I'd only played in about 160 minor league games at that point. Wow. I basically played like a total of one professional season. But I was doing really well. Like I was playing good. I was on fire. I was lucky. I was healthy. My brain was healthy. My body felt good. And I just loved playing baseball. I couldn't wait to be in the batter's box. It was such a good, refreshing feeling for me because for a few years I had really struggled with that. And, for me, playing for my teammates, growing up in East York, when I played baseball in East York, if you didn't play for your teammates, you were not going to be on that team for very long. So my boys in East York, we always kept an eye on each other and made sure that we were going to battle. We're going to battle together. And I carried that all the way, and it really helped me be a solid pro and get to the big leagues. So when you're joining the Blue Jays in 1993, that's I almost called them a Stanley Cup winning team. I'm like, wait a minute, Mike. We wish. I'm thinking about the Leafs here. I wish is true there. I only learned about it in black and white footage I saw on YouTube. Apparently, the Maple Leafs hockey team has won a few Stanley Cups, but that's before my time. But World Series championship team, they won in 1992, of course, and now you're joining this team in June, and again, at that point, we look like we're on our way to win another AL East pennant and try to repeat, which is so damn hard. I'm going to play, well, you know what? I'm going to build up to this clip. What do you remember about the playoffs in 1993?
Well, it's funny because when I got called up initially, I was a starting left fielder. They made a trade and brought Tony Fernandez in, and I got called up that night to play left field. And so I was a starting left fielder for about 11 games. And then we were playing a home game against the New York Yankees, my favorite team growing up besides the Blue Jays. And Don
How did
Mattingly,
that happen, though? I mean, because of Don Mattingly, you rooted for players, I suppose, because they're the AL East rival. I didn't know how to root for the Yankees growing up.
Yeah, well, I'm more of an I was definitely more of an older Yankee fan, like
Lou Gehrig and
Gehrig, Mickey Mantle, Joe DiMaggio, the 70s,
Murderers Row,
Ron Guidry, and these guys. And then Don Mattingly. Goose Gossage, yep. But Don Mattingly became my I really emulated him so much, as much as I could when I was playing in my own games as a kid, and Wade Boggs. I wanted to be those two guys mostly.
Both great hitters. Wow, good guys to emulate.
Yeah. So I'm playing against the Yankees. I get a hit in my first at bat. I'm on first base, and lo and behold, I'm talking to Don Mattingly, and. Bob Baylor's the first base coach, and I've already told him how many times I love Don Mattingly, and he's like, "Well, your dreams come true, Rob. Look who you're standing beside." And I'm like, "You're not kidding, man." And I went on for about 30 seconds about how Don Mattingly's poster was on my wall. I wish I had his autograph. I pretended that I was him playing Burby. I copied his stance. I copied the way he walked up the home plate, and he's looking at me going, "Okay, good job, good swing, by the way." I say, "Really, good swing? You just told me I had a good swing?" And so after that, I would say, "Yeah, watch this." So then I try to steal second base, and I break my thumb.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, and I am now on the disabled list pretty much for the rest of the season because I tore the main ligament in my thumb and was on the DL until September. So which is why my stats are low and my games played were low.
We only played the 17 games in the regular season. But that, to me, it's almost like you're peacocking there for your idol, Don Mattingly. Like if it was anyone else at first base, you'd play it a little differently and you don't break that.
Yeah, I'd be too afraid to say anything to anyone, but I had to talk to Don Mattingly and then show off and break my thumb. So I went on DL, but the Blue Jays kept me around. I was around the big league. I was around the big leagues for the whole time. I got all my rehab done there, which kind of helped me get comfortable. And then when we clinched against Milwaukee, that's when I got to play. So me, Dick Schofield, the guys who were generally not playing much, we got playing time. Because they were trying to decide who's going to play in the playoffs. They were building their playoff roster, which I knew nothing about. I just assumed all of us were on the playoff roster. I had no idea of the little things that actually go on.
Right.
So we got in, and I played pretty good. I got a bunch of hits. Most of my hits were actually in September, and Cito had to make a choice, and they picked me and Dick to be on the Dick Schofield to be on the playoff roster.
Remind me to come back to Dick Schofield after I play the clip of Tom Cheek, because there's a fun fact about Dick Schofield, but back to you.
Yeah. So we thought we were being told that we're not going anywhere. We're actually going home. We were looking at each other going, why is Cito calling us into the room? Anyways, it was good news. It was congratulations, you guys, on the World Series roster, and make the most of it when you get a chance. And so we were like high-fiving, hugging. Like, we were buddies. Like Dick was my buddy, and he took care of me. One of the guys who really took care of me when I was a rookie in the big leagues. And so that was my way of being put on the roster. I actually did earn it. The last couple of games this season, I showed that I was ready to play again, and so I got to be not expectantly going to play much because of our roster and who we had on the team. And I think we had 12 All-Stars in that team that year, so we were stacked. But at any time, anything can happen, as we all know in baseball. So I was always just preparing myself to be ready to play, and off it went.
Okay, I'm good. Again, make sure, this is your job, Rob. Make sure you don't let me forget to share the Dick Schofield story here. Okay, so we're Game 6. Maybe first talk about the World Series hit, right? Because you get a pinch hit off. You get the pinch hit off Curt Schilling, and you went 1 for 2 in that game. But tell me about getting a World Series hit.
So when we first played Chicago, the lineup didn't change. So that kind of like, we weren't thinking we were going to play much at all. And we didn't need to. I mean, the big boys are up there doing their thing, and we didn't need any pinch hitters or anybody to come into the game. Nobody got hurt. It was great because that helped us get to the World Series, keeping the bench guys on the bench. So, but when it came to playing against Philadelphia, I had never played in a game without a DH until that point. I didn't understand pinch hitting for pitchers and all that. I didn't really follow the National League a lot as a kid either. I was mostly American League with DH.
Right.
So when we went to Philadelphia, I wasn't even prepared. We didn't even talk about it. We're just hanging out on the bench. The guys, me, Dick, Darnell Coles, Ward, all those guys, Woody Williams are there, and we're all just hanging out, eating chocolate bars and just like loving life because we're in the World Series and not really having to do much. But game 3 comes along, and a pinch hitting situation comes up, and Gene Tennis comes down and says, "Butler, you're hitting." And I was like, "Butler, who?" Like, Butler's hitting. What's going on here? It was a shock. I was still in my winter coat, basically, because it was freezing cold in Philadelphia during that World Series.
Sure.
But it was great. It was a great first experience for me to get out on deck. I busted out of that coat as fast as I could, got my bat, my little Cooper bat, which I loved, and got out there in front of the 70,000 people at Veterans Stadium and got that kind of that energy that was needed to be able to handle a situation like that. But as it turned out, Lenny Dykstra made a diving catch to end that inning, and so my chance to pinch hit disappeared. But it definitely made me more ready for the next game, game 4. I was now jogging, stretching, getting ready, not screwing around, eating chocolate bars and making jokes with Dick Schofield and telling him Newfie jokes. We were being more serious. And so when the call came, when Todd Stoudemire scratched his chin all over Veterans Field,
what a moment!
I got the pinch hit in the 3rd inning, and I was ready this time, and I was pumped. I was so excited. Not a feeling of nervousness at all. It was such energy and adrenaline, something that I didn't expect, and I ate it all up. I just loved it. So I ended up reaching base in the fielder's choice, but I did score the 7th run to give us the lead in that game. So it was pretty fun. I love watching the video. Actually, that's one video I do like to watch when I'm scoring on that base hit, because I'm pretty sure I could have beat Ben Johnson in a race when that ball was hit. Nobody was running faster than me at that point.
Wow. And you did get a single too.
Yes. So in game 5, again, I was ready, but it was after the 15-14 game.
Yeah.
And as people know, baseball always seems to average itself out. It was either going to be 0-0 or 1-0 the next day. And sure enough, it was. Kurt Schilling was throwing a gem. I mean, the guy is unbelievable. He's a superstar pitcher. And it was just Nick and Tuck. We had Guzzi going, and it was incredible, the battle that was going on. And of course, Pat Borders reached base in the 8th inning, as he usually does in the clutch. I mean, that guy's
what
a superhero.
A series he had! That's the best baseball of his life. Was like those 2 weeks.
2 years in a row playing the World Series. He's Mr. Clutch, man. Like, just balls out. Amazing guy. Tough. Oh my God, tough. You don't mess with Pat Borders, but you want Pat Borders on your side.
And he looks like he could still play. Like, I saw him. They had a ceremony last year. I saw him. It looks like he could still play.
Yeah, he's one of those never-aging men. He's definitely got the same biceps and the whole thing going on. Probably still wears his little cut off shoulder T-shirt around town in Florida down there. But a great dude, and one of my favorite teammates. But he reached base, and Willie Cagnante went to pinch run, and I got the pinch hit. And it was like, for me, it was an epic battle. I mean, Kurt Schilling probably doesn't remember it even happening, but I remember every pitch. And it was a long at bat. Like, I was fouling balls up that were over my head, at my feet. I was not going to strike out looking or strike out swinging. I was going down, putting the ball in play no matter what happened. Because Cito did say, you know what, like, when you get into pinch hit, swing at everything, man. Like, don't wait around for, the pitch that you want to hit. You gotta hack. So I did. And I ended up getting a ball through the right side of the infield there and got on base. And again, it was standing there talking to John Kruk and Bob Baylor. Wow. And like, I got a base hit. And Bob's like, you got to score the tying run. Like, stop thinking about your base hit. But I'm like, but you're in heaven. Like, you're like on a cloud in heaven. It's like, oh my God.
Listen, I can only imagine. So I'm living precariously through you right now, Rob. So yeah, I love how you're describing this. So this is game 5 in Philadelphia, right? This is game 5 we're talking about here. Okay, but you got you got a World Series hit, but we lose that game, and this series is coming back to Toronto for game 6.
Yeah. So it was, we didn't expect to go down to win this 4 games in a row. Like, Philly was one of those scrappy, grind it out, but wear you down kind of teams. I mean, they had some great players, Darren Dalton and Lenny Dykstra, and oh my God, they were stacked as well, obviously. So we knew it was going to be tough. And some guys predicted it would take 6 or 7 games. They weren't shying away from the fact that Philadelphia was really good. So when when they had Kurt Schilling and Mitch Williams, and they had a great bullpen, which didn't come through for them, obviously.
Well,
in the
okay,
end.
so this game's 6. Okay, so I'm a diehard fan. I'm like I'm at home watching on TV, but I love my Blue Jays, and here we are. We're down heading into the 9th inning. We're down by a run, I believe. I'm trying to remember all the details.
Yeah, 6-5.
So we're down 6-5 going into the 9th inning, and if we lose this game, there'll be a game 7. Okay, nobody wants to take their chances on a game 7.
Mm-hmm.
But Joe, so okay, 2 on. Am I? Ricky Henderson's on, and Paul Molitor. They're
Paul
on.
Molitor
No,
on.
it's like I've seen these. I've lived this a million times. But Joe Carter, future FOTM Joe Carter, is at the plate. So let's listen to how Tom Cheek called this moment.
Here's a pitch on the way, a swing and a belt, left field, way back, Blue Jays win it! The Blue Jays are World Series champions as Joe Carter hits a 3-run home run in the 9th inning, and the Blue Jays have repeated as World Series champions. Touch 'em all, Joe. You'll never hit a bigger home run in your life.
Okay, Rob, please, in as much detail as you can, where are you? What's your reaction to that moment when you see it clear the fence? What happens next? Everything like between that moment and when we pick it up, you talking to Rod Black there on that clip we played earlier. But talk to me.
Well, first of all, like, you got to appreciate how amazing Tom Cheek did right there. Like, that whole going through, and like, there's no way there's a script. Like, he's really going off his own reaction and his own emotion, and he set it out perfectly. Like, it was such a momentous moment, and everything he said was like bang on, and still gives you goosebumps.
Oh yeah,
right? You still feel the chills.
I was loading it up last night. I'm like, I get to play it again. You know, I did a whole. I'll just tell the listenership. I did a whole Mike-umentary about this home run where I had people who were there. You know, Dan Schulman was actually stuck in an elevator shaft, but I had a whole bunch of people who were there that day telling me their recollections. Jerry Howarth has been over to tell me his recollections. You know, and there's a Mike-umentary out there about this home run by Joe Carter. But now I'm talking to somebody on the team for the very first time on Toronto Mike. And you got to tell me, like, so what? Are you able to watch? Because Rod Black was saying, like, you were covering your eyes. Did you see it?
No, of course I did. I was
okay.
No, I didn't miss that. I would not miss that. It was funny because in the 7th inning I think we had the lead, and Lane Dykstra just kept hitting home runs and like pissing us all off.
So
Like
good,
this little rat of a player
Yeah.
just freaking beating us by himself. And
I love those kind of players, though.
Oh.
I had such maximum respect for Nails, like the way he played. I like those gamers.
I got a chance to play a little bit with Lenny because I got traded to Philly later on.
Sure.
So yeah, great dude. Like the dude, and that's what they called him. I mean, he had I think the dude on his shoes. But so at one point I was actually getting ready in case I had to go in. So I happened to be down the tunnel, and I was nervous as all hell. So I was like, I didn't want to watch the one part of the inning, and because they were beating us up. But no, definitely when we were in the 9th inning, I was right there with my boys, Dickie and Darnell and everybody, and it was like we were all holding hands. Like, come on, Joe. We knew if there was one guy that could do it, it'd be him. Nobody was really expecting a home run. Because we had runners on, I think, first and second, and so we just needed a base hit, and the right guy, the most clutch guy that we've
base
had.
Base hit would tie this game.
Yeah, and that was Paul Molitor. Like, we heard them talking; they were all talking in a group there before the inning even started. Like, Ricky Henderson was going to mess with Mitch and step out of the box, and all that was planned. Like, he knew he was going to do that to try to mess him up, and it worked because he couldn't throw anything near a strike after that to Ricky. But Ricky's a menace, right? It's the greatest leadoff hitter of all time.
Right? Yeah.
The greatest leadoff hitter of all time. So, for sure, Mitch had problems with that. And then really like the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lineup that's coming up, like there's no escape, right? There really is no escape for any pitcher. So we had, Devo, Robbie, anybody that was coming up was going to be clutch at the time.
Right.
So when Joe was up, it was definitely kind of like a quiet stillness in the bench, like explosive energy inside your body, but nothing that anybody could see. It was really like this, this whole energetic, like lightning bolt was traveling through all of us. And when Joe actually does hit the home run, it almost is unbelievable. It really is, because you see the swing. I can still see the ball taking off. We really couldn't see it go over the fence because it was down tight in that left field corner when it went over into the bullpen. But when you see him start jumping, and the fans going ballistic, that's when we knew. And it was just like we were bouncing off the roof.
Okay, so let me ask you, when when because he kind of hooks it up, like there's a moment of like, will this go foul or will it stay fair? Like, it's kind of wild how straight it kept. Like it was totally fair, not even that close really. But there is that moment of like, is this thing gonna stay fair? Like, what are you guys just like holding your breath to see if this ball, because it's got the distance, but will it be fair? Like, is it that moment when then when you see it? I guess like you said, you hear you see the reaction. Like the crowd tells you this thing was fair.
Oh yeah, no, it like Joe normally would hit that pitch over our dugout. He pulls the ball so much. So yeah, it was funny how he was able to keep it fair. But there's that kind of like that moment I think everybody would have where you kind of like your arms go up, your mouth, your jaw drops, and your eyeballs bulge out.
You're like, it's over.
In slow motion, and then it's like boom, and you just start freaking out. Like you just start freaking out. You really don't even know what you're doing. Because we were all bouncing. Somehow me, Nick Leva, Jack Morris ended up down the third base line. So he jumps into Jack Morris's arms, Nick Leva's arms. And then lo and behold, there's little Rob Butler in behind him, like running behind him in behind home plate. So I'm not in any picture that shows Joe Carter touching home plate because I'm actually behind him. And he's about 6'5" and I'm only 5'10". And about 175 pounds. I disappear into his into the back of his body. And so I'm never seen. So people are like, were you there? Because I see every other player. But yeah, no, I am literally strapped to his belt and carrying him to home plate when you watch the actual thing happen.
Amazing. Do you have any awareness that you're the first Canadian to win a World Series with the Blue Jays? Like, because there was no Canadian on the 92 World Series winning team, and there's no other Canadian on this 93 winning team. Like, do you have any sense of that piece of history?
No, not really. Like nothing that I really pay attention to. It was talked a lot about me being from Toronto, especially.
Well, I found a clip. You mentioned, we were talking about Butlerville earlier, and the fun fact about Butlerville, that's in Newfoundland, right?
Yes.
Butlerville. But I watched just yesterday, I watched a news report talking about Butlerville and showing how fanatical they were for you in this World Series run in Butlerville. Like that side story is unbelievable.
Yeah, no, it was. It made a lot of fun because it was talked about a lot. Whenever I played just a regular game, and especially when I played in the World Series, they talked about Butlerville. They said everybody there is named Butler. So it was so exciting and enticing for them. And I didn't know the whole scope of it because I was just enthralled and getting on the subway and heading to the Sky Dome to play in the games. But I went to Newfoundland after the World Series, and it was planned on not being any kind of an event. I wanted to see my grandmother and my grandfather, who I hadn't seen in a couple of years.
Sure.
So it was nothing that was supposed to be big. And we got off the airplane. There had been 5,000 people at the airport, and there was a parade basically from the airport to my grandmother's house in Butlerville. And so me and my brother were in the car, and we were just like, man, this is a little bigger than we thought. I thought it was just going to be grandma and my dad's 13 brothers and sisters with us at the house, but it ended up being about 10,000 people. We signed autographs for about 10 straight hours.
Wow.
And it was a steady stream of happiness, fun. They were so excited that something so interesting was happening, and it was surreal. And I don't know, my grandparents are gone now, but I'll just never forget my grandmother looking at me, because she's only like 4'11", and just saying, I love you, bye. And it's just like, oh, it was amazing. It was such a good time, and I never will forget it.
Where is your World Series ring right now?
My World Series ring is in my house. My wife actually hides it for me. It's usually not anywhere inconspicuous, but I bring it out to show kids. I let the kids wear it, let them take pictures with it, because I always tell them that, if you put a World Series ring on, you now have a baseball superpower. And somehow they all seem to go get 2 hits in their next game. So it's like spreading the love of joy, and that you can do it, that if you really think about, anything that you want to try to accomplish, it can possibly happen. And that, it really is a way to bring so much of the baseball community together, for me especially. And it is really a connection to my Major League Baseball career.
Well, when Rod was here on Friday, we talked about the 2019 Toronto Raptors, and we talked about how, because it's tough times right now for that team. And we talked about how flags fly forever. And that is true, of course, for the 1993 Toronto Blue Jays. Like, they can never take that away from you. You were a part of a World Series winning baseball team, and I hope you just realize how freaking amazing that is, and how proud we all were that East York's Rob Butler was part of that team.
Yeah, I definitely like when in the moment, the perspective is different, because you're living it and you're doing it and you're trying to not be so crazily insane about it. But now it's like, people do remind me, it's only 25 guys on that roster, 25 guys on the whole planet. And you're on the greatest team in the world at that time. So I feel so fortunate. I feel proud of myself, which is something I never did as a kid. I'm definitely proud of what I accomplished. I definitely did it with my family, and it's something that I'll never forget. It's something that I appreciate more and more as I get older. And, baseball was my world, and I'm so happy that I've always been a part of it.
So we talked about how, well, maybe it was actually in the clip, I think, before Rod Black interviewed you back then in October 1993. But that is only the second time a World Series ended on a home run. So the first time a World Series ended on a home run was Bill Mazeroski. And here's the fun fact, which you might know. But Dick Schofield, of course, he's on the field with you when Joe Carter touches them all. But did you know his dad was on the field when Bill Mazeroski touched them all? Did you know that?
I did.
Okay.
And the reason why I do know that is because when everything kind of quieted down, sort of, Dick Schofield did say, you know who else was on the field when this happened?
Right.
My dad.
Isn't that
Dick
amazing,
Sr.,
though?
yeah.
What are the this fun fact was brought to me by Dave Perkins, who was, of course, covering that World Series team for the Toronto Star, and it's just a mind blow that father-son would be part of these two such rare. And again, I don't think it hasn't happened since, right? A World Series ending on a home run hasn't happened since. No,
it's
so
such
twice.
a rare thing.
Yeah, and then by the way, it was 1960, Game 7. I was just a young man back then, but that's when Bill Mazeroski hit the home run in the 9th inning, Game 7 of the 60 World Series, and that beat your New York Yankees there. So shout out to the Pittsburgh Pirates there.
Yeah, no, it's funny. Like anytime there's a father-son or a brother brothers who make it to the major leagues, it's such a rare thing. And I still think me and Rich are the only brothers to ever wear Blue Jay uniforms. I don't think there's ever been another pair of brothers.
That's amazing, because I know there's like John Mayberry and his, I think there's a father-son who have done it, but you're right. You might be the only brothers who have done it. I'm trying to think.
Yeah, to play for the Blue Jays. I don't think any other brother combo has done that yet.
That's amazing too.
Yeah, no, it is. Rich was far superior athletically and skill-wise as a baseball player. My ability came from just my grind. I mean, I was the smallest player on the team. Always been the smallest player on every team I think I've ever played on. So you're playing with a bunch of trees and trying to figure out how do I stay and compete at this level, and you just got to grind it out, man. My dad made me work with him in the factory for 3 years for my summers, and I got to live his life and see how hard it was on him and how hard getting up at 6 a.m. was, and that really helped me, man. Like it's taught me how to just fight for your life and do whatever it takes to try to compete with the best.
Eric had a question for you when he heard you were making your Toronto Mike debut, and I'm so glad you're here to have this convo. I'm getting goosebumps just listening to you. But Eric says, if you have a chance, could you ask Rob what made him wear the high socks, and if he still does it?
I actually still do. I'm looking at this Toronto Maple Leafs history book. I don't seem to have made the cover of this book, but I even wore my high socks when I was a Toronto Maple Leaf baseball player. It's funny, when me and Rich went to our first mini camp in June 1991, I was just coming off my therapy sessions, and Rich was just leaving high school. So we went there together. We were roommates, which was also helped me having him around. Yeah. I called him like how like a thoroughbred needs a little goat for a little buddy to keep him calm, and so Rich was kind of like that for me. Even though he was better than me, to me he was my little goat that kept me calm. So, anyways, we did our first spring training there together. And what was the question again? I'm off topic.
No, listen, it's funny you called him a goat, because now, like when we were growing up,
my high socks. That's right.
You were getting back to your high socks,
yes.
But it's a funny, like the connotation goat changed so much since you were coming up and now. Like now it's like, oh, he's my goat. It's like, oh, he's the greatest of all time. But when we were growing up, goats were you can talk about. But back to your high socks.
So it's funny. My wife always reminds me, stay on topic, because if you go off the road, you can't find your way back. And it is so true. I'm sorry,
I'll
Sherry.
bring you back.
I apologize, Sherry. I just proved you right again for the 100,000th time in our marriage. So we were terrible. Oh my God, we were so brutal. Doug Alt was my coach in St. Catharines, and he was throwing me batting practice, and I could not hit the ball past the pitching screen. Like every ball I hit was either a foul ball, swing and a miss, pop up. Nothing went to the outfield. I'd never used a wooden bat before in my life. It was my first time using a wood bat, actually, for me and Rich. We only used aluminum when we were growing up, so it was definitely different. And he'd peek around and say, like, is there an 11-year-old hitting? Like, who brought the bat boy? He just was chirping us, right? Having fun, like the dugout always did. So for 4 or 5 days, like we didn't think we were going to make it. We didn't think we were going to make it through our first mini camp, which was only about 16 days long.
Right.
We were terrible. So we were having our spaghetti meatballs, which Rich made for us every night when we were together at the hotel. And he was like, you know what? You're Lou Gehrig. I'm Babe Ruth. Let's pull up our socks, go show up tomorrow, pull the socks up and see what happens. And lo and behold, ball started going over the fence.
Love that so much. What a great question for you from Eric.
Yeah,
And
it was
love that story.
it was insanely amazing how that somehow clicked. I don't know if it's timing that we had more time, but I never
whatever
steered
works,
from it.
right?
Yep. I kept my high socks for the rest of my career. I did it when nobody else did it. I think me and Jim Thome were the only guys with high socks in the big leagues in 1993. Which I got made fun of every day for, but I didn't care because there was no way I was going to play with my pants down my ankles because it wasn't going to work.
Right. And a shout out to the late great Doug Alt because he hit 2 home runs on opening day in 1977.
Doug Alt was a great coach, a perfect coach for me my first year. He was fun. He was funny. He took it very not seriously. Like he understood what we were going through as young guys, first time playing pro ball. And man, was he the right guy for me? I thrived under his leadership and, the expectation that you go play hard, you do what you can, but you make sure you have fun, you chirp, you're with your boys, your brothers, and we did, man. It was great.
Okay, so obviously I wanted to focus on 1993 because what a great team. I mean, in 92 we talked about Whamco, and then we brought in the greatest leadoff hitter in the history of the sport. So Whamco got changed up, like Ham Cow or something.
Yeah.
But what a great team. I mean, so that team that wins the World Series in 1993, like, do you still maintain friendships with some of these players? Like when Joe Carter's in town, do you still say hi? Or I'm just curious, are you still friendly with like a Paul Molitor? Or have you had any contact with Roberto Alomar? Who's probably the greatest positional player of all time.
Me being probably the only guy that still has always lived in Toronto, it's difficult to get together with the guys. It really only happens when they come into town, and they're all really good to me. We hang, we do all the alumni events together. And Paul Molitor came to my old batting cage when I used to own my batting cage a couple times, and Alomar came out to the cage. So they'll do anything that you want. Pat Henkin came. We had all the guys come.
Pat Henkin, yeah.
So it's kind of our connect that I kept the connection going, was asking them to give some tips to the kids, and I would say half the team came at some point.
Maybe that's where we let it go. So I want to talk. So again, Major League Baseball, you're part of this 1993 World Series winning Toronto Blue Jay team, and of course you're with the team for 41 games in 1994. But then they trade you in December 94 to the Phillies. So you get to be a teammate of Lenny Dykstra's, and you play with the Phillies. I think you played in 43 games. You batted .292. Sounds pretty damn good to me. But then you sign with Houston. You play for the minor league system with the Houston Astros. But here's something people probably don't remember. But in 1998, you do come back as a free agent to play for the Blue Jays. You play 8 games in the 1999 season. And then your final Major League game is July 10th, 1999. So here, let me give you a couple of gifts, and then I want to just touch on your IBL career, and that'll lead us to you coaching now. And then I have another clip because, you alluded to these players you're mentoring and coaching, and I want to talk about that as well because that's all part of the same nut here. So, do you enjoy Italian food, Rob?
Of course. My grandfather's Italian.
Is that so?
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. My grandfather's Italian. My mom's a Mohawk. She's from Kahnawake in Quebec. And my dad's a Newfie, an Irish Newfie. So I've got it all in me.
Well, listen, what I have for you is I have in my freezer right now, I have a large frozen lasagna from Palma Pasta. I was actually at Palma's Kitchen on the weekend. I think it was Saturday I was there, and I had a meal with Anthony, Anthony's father, who started Palma Pasta in 1985. He's turning 100 years old this year and still doing well, so shout out to the Petrucci family. But don't leave here without your Palma Pasta lasagna. You're going to love it.
I will absolutely love it, and it saves me a night of actually cooking up something for my wife. I promise her I make her dinner once a week, and this is going to make it easy for me for this week.
Going to make it easy. There'll be leftovers, too, and you'll love it. Let me know what you think of it. And I do want to shout out an event that I'm hosting on June 27 from 6 to 9 p.m. at Great Lakes Brewery here in Southern Etobicoke. Palma Pasta is going to feed everybody who comes out, and Great Lakes will buy you your first beer. And Great Lakes sent over some fresh craft beer for you, Rob, to take back to Oshawa with you. You'll love it. Fresh craft beer from Great Lakes Brewery.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I appreciate any gifts, actually. And so this is great.
Lots of gifts coming your way.
Yep.
Okay. I also have a measuring tape for you, Rob. This is courtesy of Ridley Funeral Home. They're pillars of this community since 1921. And you never know when you have to measure something.
Yes. Yes.
Insert joke here. I know you're thinking, oh, do I say this? What will Sherry say if I tell this joke?
I got nothing that's measurable, so it's all good.
Yeah, I'm not fixing that in post. Okay. Shout out to recyclemyelectronics.ca. That's where you go, Rob, if you have old electronics, old cables in a drawer in Oshawa, and you don't want to throw that in the garbage because the chemicals end up in our landfill. So you go to recyclemyelectronics.ca, put in your address. It's like, hey, drop it off here because, it gets properly recycled and it's good for Mother Earth. So recyclemyelectronics.ca.
Yes.
Find out if Elvis has any stuff too. I feel like he's got the Costco room. Maybe he's got a big giant drawer full of cables that he hasn't used since 1995.
Well, all of us old people generally still have cables around because we're old.
And we never get rid of it.
We don't know that there's wireless stuff to buy now, so hopefully we'll clue in.
You never know if you're going to need those old cables. Okay, now let's talk here a little bit about the IBL, and then I do have a clip I want to play. Again, another clip from Rod Black. But you're retired from Major League Baseball, again, 1999, but you're not done playing high-level baseball because, as you told us off the top, you joined the IBL as a inter-county. I always want to say intercontinental, like it's Randy Macho Man Savage, intercontinental champion or whatever.
Elizabeth.
Oh, shout out to Ridley Funeral Home, man.
Mm-hmm.
I love that WWF. Well, you see here, I got George Animal Steel here.
Yeah.
I got Andre the Giant here. Love that time in the WWF. But
Junkyard Dog, all my old heroes. I used to
grab
love
them
watching
cakes.
wrestling.
GRABCAKES.
Superfly Snooker.
Off the top rope. Absolutely. Okay, we could talk forever about this. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. So Inter-County Baseball League, you join it. You play for the Toronto Maple. So tell me a little bit about your playing career in the IBL, because you play for, what is it, 4 years or so? You don't
4 years, yeah.
You play until 2005.
Yeah. So when I retired, I actually retired with a back injury. And a little bit of other things going on, but I retired from baseball actually happily in 1999. I was actually in the major leagues with the Blue Jays when I retired, but I was on the disabled list.
8 games with the 1999 Blue Jays.
Yeah, I was on the injured list, which is a whole other story about how I even came back to make it to the major leagues again.
Well, you can tell the story. I don't want to deprive you of a good story. Shades of Dave Stieb coming out of the bullpen.
Dave Stieb, my hero. So in 98, I was at a function and I saw Gord Ash, and my dream was to kind of make amends with the Blue Jays because I felt like I got traded and I was unhappy. I was sad. I got traded to the Phillies for nothing. I think I got traded for a bag of used baseballs, and I felt like, man, oh man, what have I done to my baseball career? So I scuttled around the minor leagues and got to the big leagues a couple times, but I always wanted to finish my career as a Blue Jay. It didn't matter if it was an A ball again. I just wanted to wear the Blue Jay uniform because a lot of my guys were still there. The coaches were still there. Ernie Witt and all these guys were still around, and they were, my childhood heroes and my coaches when I was coming up. And I wanted to finish back. So we talked, and he said, we'll make you a fourth outfielder in Syracuse if you want. And so I think I signed the contract before he could even finish the sentence. So I was back with the Blue Jays in the organization.
Yeah.
I go to spring training in 1999. And I'm at, it's basically, you're still always kind of trying out in spring training, but I thought I pretty much had a job guaranteed, but I didn't. And Terry Bevington and Hector Torres were the coaches, and we had our little like individual meetings, and they said, what's your goal for this year? And I said, well, I want to be the fourth outfielder and, be a good teammate and kind of, show some leadership. And they're like, well, you're not making the team. I was like, what? This is day one, day one of spring training. And they're like, yeah, no, we already have 5 outfielders and you're not on the radar. And we're just letting you know because Bevington was like a guy who didn't want to lie and tell it and, string me along. So I was like, whoa. Anyways, I kind of went back to, I called my brother right away. Actually, it's funny. I said, I'm not making this. I'm done. Like, I'm going to be released in spring training. They kind of got me around for whatever. And he just said, you know what? You never know. Baseball, you just never know. Do not walk away. So I didn't. And I got about 12 or 13 at bats. I think I struck out 12 of the 13 times. I was practicing on field 3 at the old Dunedin Fields, which means that you are practicing where nobody is watching.
Right.
So I literally had no chance. So I did get released about with 3 days to go. I was not surprised. Jimmy Hoff brought me in with Garth Orge and Ernie Witt, and they said, we're sorry, Rob, but there was no spot for you. I said, I already knew that. I knew that on day one. And but it was still upsetting. I was like devastated. I get up, I say my thank yous and my goodbyes, and I get up, and Ernie Witt and Garth Orge talk to each other. And I turn to Jimmy, and something's going on. I go to my locker. Garth Orge comes over to me and says, you literally have 30 seconds. You're going to go to AA or you're going home. Tell me right now. I said, I'm going to AA.
Wow.
So they gave me one more opportunity. They sent me to Knoxville in AA, and Omar Malavey was my manager, who also has passed away now, but great guy. And he said, Rob, we're going to give you a chance. You're going to play every day because we have a spot here. So I ended up, I never played AA before. I actually skipped AA on my way up to the big leagues. So it's funny. I went from A-ball to AAA to the big leagues all within like a month.
Right.
And on the way down, they said the mountain is pretty slippery when you're going down. I was back in AA for the first time as a 29-year-old. But I had the time of my life. I had so much fun. I had so much fun with Omar. I had so much fun with the guys. I had no intention of ever being called up to the big leagues. I was batting about 350, 360. I was really loving it. And I was a veteran on the team. I was playing with a bunch of 20, 21-year-olds. Anyways, All-Star game comes around. I didn't want to play in the All-Star game. I didn't want to take a spot from somebody who was younger. Omar makes me go, da-da-da. After the game, he calls me over and he says, Rob, I got to talk to you. But he does it in front of our whole All-Star team. And I got a message for Rob. And I thought he was sending me home. Like, great career. Thank you for everything you've done, da-da-da.
Right.
Nope, Rob, you are going to the major leagues.
Wow.
And I was like, what? So I basically went from being released in spring training, sent to AA, thankfully because of Ernie Witt and Garth Orge. And I got a chance to play baseball with guys I loved, a city that I loved. Knoxville was amazing. The bus rides were awful, but they were also fun because they were 12 hours and 14 hours with no food, no money in your pockets, just plain suffering, but it's a suffering that you enjoy. It's so weird. It's such a weird thing. But
well, you weren't going to take that for granted because of where you were in your career.
Oh, exactly. I did not take 1 second of any of it for granted. And I got back to the big leagues, which was probably, for me, the most thrilling and exciting time, more than the first time around, because the first time around was kind of a prospect, and it was, I was doing well and I was young. When it's your last time around, it really does mean more to you individually, right? Nobody else even knows what you're going through, what you've lived through. But I had spent about 9 years toiling around AAA and with the Phillies a little bit in the majors. But I was a AAA guy mostly, and to get back to the big leagues with Toronto was a huge accomplishment for myself because I was done. I was cooked and out the door.
Wow.
And got my way back in.
Wow. And again, you play your last game for the Toronto Blue Jays on July 10th, 1999.
Yep.
So that day, they put you in a room or something and say thank you for your service, but
yep. Basically, thank you for everything you've done.
Right.
You're done.
You're done. Okay. So in 2001, you joined the Toronto Maple Leafs. So is it right away that you talked about playing in Stratford first?
So I played in Stratford in 88, 90. So in the 1900s with black and white TVs and your phone's still on the wall. That's when I played in Stratford. Couldn't call home. I couldn't find nobody. If you got lost, nobody knew where you were.
Right.
So when I actually skipped a whole season, I sat out the year 2000 and just did some baseball camps and kind of just gave back to East York. I did some camps at Sam Wadlow. I'm not thinking about playing baseball. And my best friend at the time, Mike Aslan, who's still one of my best friends, said, you want to come play for the Leafs? Because he was the first baseman on the Leafs. And I was like, I never even thought there would be an opportunity to do that. It's something that I always had wanted to do, obviously, because I said when I was a kid, I loved the Leafs.
Yeah.
And then he relayed it to Jack Dominico, and Jack got on the horn, called me right away and said, you want to be a Leaf? And I was like, absolutely, I want to be a Leaf, not even knowing really what it was at that time because I'd been so long not playing in Toronto. And I hadn't picked up a bat for over a year and a half. But I agreed to do it, and I was excited. And so Jack signed me, and then my brother ended up getting released out of spring training, and he came, and it was our first chance to play on the same team together.
What was that like playing with Rich?
Oh, my God, it was the dream come true. We played against each other a lot in AAA. He was with Syracuse and I was with Scranton, and with the Phillies. So we played against each other a bunch of times. But we never played on the same team. And to play with Rich was like the things I've always wanted to do my whole life. And standing in center field and looking over in right field, and there's your brother, was great. And that level of baseball was really competitive. There's pro guys in the league. Paul Spaljerek ended up in the league, but
Yeah, I was gonna say Paul Spaljerek ended up playing for that that Maple Leaf team.
yeah, I got Paul on the team because he lived in Toronto at the time. He's from BC, but he was living in Toronto, and so I called him and asked him if he would play, and then I got Jack to call him, kind of like what Mike did for me.
Right.
So, but me and Rich playing together, it was really special. It really was the Butler brothers doing their thing, and we had a great first year. We broke the record for most wins in the league. My brother won the MVP, he won the batting title, he had the home run record. The guy was unbelievable. Not talked about enough. Rich doesn't get enough credit for how good a baseball player he was. This guy was a 5-tool player, man. He was chiseled. He was Alex Rodriguez without steroids. Like, he was unbelievably fit and tough and could do anything on a baseball diamond. And he did it in the big leagues. He got, he hit some big league home runs, hit the first home run off of Roy Halladay that Roy Halladay ever gave up.
Wow.
So when we got to play together, it was special. And I loved being on base when he hit home runs. And that happened a lot. So it was, it really was a family affair. My mom and dad were at every game. They sat down in right field. And there was times where me and Rich were, our pitching staff was so good at the time. We had John Duras, Chris Roth. We had all these guys who were ex-pros who were dominating the league. So me and my brother would play in the outfield and literally stand beside each other and just talk. And like, no balls are coming to the outfield. So we would end up literally 10 feet apart, just saying, like, just telling stories of whatever.
Shooting the
Like,
breeze.
yeah, we were shooting the breeze all the time and, chirping and laughing and joking about everything. And, it was great, man. I love playing. We played together about 3 years on the team.
So was Rich part of the team that won the 2002 league championship?
Yes, he was instrumental in us winning.
Like, what's that like? Like, I don't even have a list here in front of me how many players have won a World Series title. And what is the name? Pardon my ignorance. I got to revisit my Toronto Maple Leafs history book here. But what is the name of the trophy you win when you win the Inter-County Baseball League?
It was the Jack Dominico Cup.
There you go.
It's been that for a long
makes
time
sense.
now. Yeah. He's like a pillar of that league. He bought the Leafs back in 1969, or took it over. I don't even think he bought anything back then, probably for $1. And he turned the league into a league where guys who play pro can come back and play. Guys who want to get to the pros play.
Very
Like Peter
cool.
Orr came up, and before he got to the major leagues, played for the Leafs as well. So Jack built that whole. He really was the pillar of the whole league. So for him to put me and Rich on the same team and for us to win together was even more special because he had a great year that year as well. He's one of the top hitters that have ever hit in that league. So it was one of the reasons why we won.
Okay, so a question came in from Mike Rogotsky. Mike Rogotsky says, it's great that you have Rob Butler on the show. Can you ask Rob about what changes we can expect on and off the field with the Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team now that they are under new ownership? So this is the first season where we talked about this at length with Rod Black, but, we talked about Keith Stein earlier in this episode, but new ownership, you're the manager of this team. You were the manager last year too, right? Is this your...
Yeah. This is my second year now.
Second year as team manager. So before I play this clip of Rod Black, which will tie in with his firstborn son, tell me, well, answer Mike's question here. Like, what changes, what'll be different now with the new ownership? What do you know about?
Well, the energy of the owners is great, and they are making changes right away. Like, the uniform is being changed. We're actually going to a more pro-looking uniform, which is beautiful. People are actually going to want to buy this jersey. The old jerseys were not up to par, what I would say, for the level of baseball that we're playing. And the new owners have come in and revamped the look, keeping with the history totally, but they have gone with a more professional feel. So it's amazing that the look of the team is going to be better. The fan experience is going to be way better. There's much more fan engagement, more stuff going on in the stands, more interesting things for the fans, more giveaways, more just fun at the park, more music. They've upgraded the sound
Make
system.
it a meeting spot. Like, let's bring it back. So, like, let's talk specifically about, and again, the schedule, there's a website, go get the schedule, but the first game at Christie Pitts this season is May 12. And I know I'm going to be there recording. Like, I'm going to have like a tent and I'm going to be recording this. Maybe I'll get to say hello to you on the
that'd be
recording.
great.
Yeah. And I know I'm bringing from Hamilton, Stephen Brunt is coming and Mark Hebscher will be there. And I got Rick Emmett from Triumph is coming out, and there's some other surprises in store. I know Rick Vive will be there. There'll be some other former Maple Leafs there that I can't speak about quite yet. But we're going to make this like an event. People come out, say hi to me, say hello on the microphone, see some great baseball, enjoy the atmosphere. It'll be great to, see Rob Butler there, coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team. So it's going to be, and I'm going to be recording at least once a month. I'm going to be setting up shop at Christie Pitts to record during a Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team game. So I'm excited about this. I'm excited that you'll be there. And the new jerseys you mentioned, I saw a photo on social media, and they look cool. Like, I can't wait to get my mitts on one of those new jerseys.
Yeah, no, definitely the jersey is going to be amazing. And it's funny, all those guys are guys that I grew up loving. Rick Vive, my favorite Leaf.
Well, first Leaf to score 50 goals.
Triumph, I loved Triumph growing up.
So that took. Look, I literally have the lead singer of the Jitters is going to drive to Burlington to pick up Rick Emmett and deliver him to the game. And Rick Emmett was a slow pitch superstar.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're going to do something special for him. I've talked to Keith about this. We'll do something special for Rick Emmett, get him some swag, and then I'll get him on the mic and talk about it, get him back to Christie Pitts. But yeah, all this is happening. There's a new buzz, a new excitement around this team.
Yeah, and Rick Emmett doesn't know, but Jeff Lounsbury, the general manager of the team, is a Triumph groupie and a Rick Emmett group. Like, he loves this guy.
Okay, well,
like, we may not get an autograph because Jeff will not leave this guy alone. He's definitely a super fan of Rick Emmett.
Well, this is happening May 12th. I can't wait, man. I can't wait. Let me play. I promised another clip from Rod Black, and then we can talk about this part of your life in baseball. Let's listen.
Anybody like know the Bushmen, who are famous and infamous at the same time, who go to the games and they've got great chirps. I've met some of them just before Christmas with the manager, Rob Butler, who was a World Series.
Who's my guest on Monday?
Is it
He's
Butsy?
here Monday.
Oh,
yeah.
Listen, tell him that he's got so many great stories. I would also say my son, Tyler, who's a prospective big leaguer.
Well,
he's knocking on the door.
You're stealing my thunder. We're going to get to that.
He's knocking on the door. He's probably not a big leaguer without Rob Butler. So we'll get to that in a sec. But so Butsy and I went out and saw the Bushmen. And I think a lot of people said, well, new ownership, they're going to try to we're going to change things. We're going to absolutely change things. We're going to make it better. We're going to get a better sound system in there. We're going to have great promotions, a lot of giveaways. We're going to bring the Savannah Bananas here.
Okay, so there's a little bit of Rod Black, but what I want the takeaway from that is he gives you such enormous credit for the professional development of his son Tyler, who is a hot prospect for the Milwaukee Brewers now.
Yep, Tyler was special from the first minute we saw him as an 8-year-old coming down from Markham and Stouffville. Left-handed hitter. It's funny. He actually reminds me so much of my brother.
Wow.
The same physique, the same attitude, the same gamerness. Like, all of that was built in there at an early age from playing hockey or whatever Rod had his kids doing when they were young. But we got to take him under our wing and kind of raise him as a proper baseball player. This guy did everything that you dream of doing as a kid. This kid would steal all 4 bases. It was unbelievable how good he was.
Stealing first is tough.
It felt like he stole first, but he would steal home. Yeah, I swear I saw him steal home 20 times. And I remember him looking at me for the first time. He's probably about 11 years old, and he was like, "Rob, I can steal home." I said, "Well, go do it. Like, if you can do it, do it." Because I used to do it, so do it. And sure enough, probably about 20 times later, he's like, "Man, I love stealing home." Wow. But he could hit. He hit bombs. We went to America a lot, and that was the one thing that really was great about our program. We used to run a program called the Ontario Prospects and the Butler Prospects. And Tyler, I really truly believe thrived. He played 70 games every year. We went to spring training in Florida. But he played probably, by the time he was 15 years old, he'd probably played about 35 tournaments in the U.S., and most kids in Canada were not doing that. But that was our belief, that you had to go down and play against better players, experience driving and then playing games and living in hotels. And I really believe that doing that at a young age really just drives something special into every kid. Like, every kid in our program feels that was what helped them the most. And just, really having me and Rich as their coaches, as guys who had expectations of how you play properly. We believed in having fun, but, when it came to getting down to it, you got after it. And Tyler was one of those kids who, oh my God, this guy hit. I mean, I had other coaches coming up to me and saying, is this guy not going to be a professional one day? And I was like, we knew when he was 13, 14, this guy was going to be a pro.
Wow.
And we were right. Like, we were right. And a thriving pro. One is going to be in the big leagues very shortly.
We should make sure whenever he makes his ML debut, let's pretend it's in Milwaukee or something. We got to make sure, Rob Butler, you should be at that game.
I will be. I've already been invited, so I'm looking forward to when it does happen.
See, here I am making the magic happen. It's already well underway here. But maybe shout out some of your clinics and stuff. I mean, I was told you run these great clinics, and you coach amateur baseball players, and you've been giving back to the game all these years. You're not just coaching the Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team. You're also, you're running these camps and stuff. Maybe shout all that out for players like the Tyler Blacks of the world.
Yeah, no, I've been doing camps for 23 years now. This will be our 23rd year. We do them now up at Durham College. It's a turf field, It's unbelievable. It's for kids 13 and under, which is our niche, is what we want. We want the younger kids we can embed the professional way of doing things and make it competitive and challenging. So we've been doing it for 23 years. My brother's been doing it as well. I'm doing the Toronto Maple Leafs World Series experience on some Sundays before games, which kids can come out and learn from me and from other players as well. And it's just something that I've always loved doing. Even when I was playing, I couldn't wait to teach kids how to play properly, because it's the one thing that we never really got as kids. We had to learn on our own, right? We had to learn from just our muscle memory, and nobody really could guide us on how to do it right, because nobody had done it before, and nobody really knew the nuances and the little things that make a difference. And so I always wanted to take what I got from Cito and Bill Buckner and Mike Easler and Richie Hebner, Ernie and Garth, all these guys who taught me and my brother how to play properly. We wanted to always pass that along, and we've been doing it for a long time, and it's so much fun. We can't wait for summertime to get after it again.
Quick question about another Toronto ball player, a guy named Joey Votto. You ever heard of this guy?
Oh, yeah. I used to hit with Joey. Joey, we used to hit out in Etobicoke at Denny Burney's place, Pro Teach, another great facility to train in. You want to go somewhere and learn how to play baseball properly, learn from Denny Burney. But Joey, when he was in high school, me and Rich and a couple of other pros used to go to Denny's place and hit.
Is Don Bosco?
Denny Burney at Pro Teach.
No, I mean the high school.
Yeah,
Don Bosco. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. I'm not.
Remember, you're in Etobicoke right now.
Yeah, I know.
Not East York.
For me, going on the west side of Yonge Street is like, I think I need a passport, because people on the east side don't venture across to the west side very often. So
It's
sometimes
funny,
I'm
'cause
lost
I
out
feel the
here.
opposite. Like now you're in Oshawa, but if I'm going to visit you at like in East York, it's like I have to use Google Maps in my headphones when I'm biking there. I'm like, where am I exactly? It's like,
I know, people don't realize there's beautiful beaches, there's beautiful. Queen Street's amazing, but nobody wants to venture down there from the west side. It's funny.
oh well, the beach is freaking amazing. And shout out to Rouge Park, biggest park in the city, but everybody talks about Hyde Park. What's up with that? Rouge Park, biggest park in the city. Okay. So shout out to the East End. But yeah, so back to Joey Votto, good Etobicoke boy. I always, just before the Blue Jays announced he was getting a tryout, and I know he's got an ankle injury, but hopefully we'll see him with the Toronto Blue Jays baseball team this year. But were there any conversations, any talks about, hey, this guy's not done playing pro? You, when you were done with MLB, you weren't done playing competitive baseball. I was actually looking up your stats in the IBL, okay? Your career average in the IBL was .415. You batted .415,
Yeah.
okay? Like, Joey Votto wants to play at home. If the Blue Jays weren't interested, it turns out they are, thankfully, but Joey Votto would be a hell of a draw at Christie Pitts of the Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team.
Oh my God, absolutely.
Were these conversations happening? Because I was trying to start the rumor to make them happen. Like, were there any conversations, and you and Keith Stein on a phone call one night, and we got to get Votto?
It actually has been talked about, and it's funny. Back when 1998, 99, we were hitting out in Pro Teach, and Denny and Joey was there when he was just a little kid, 15, 16 years old, up and comer, just sucking it all in, like learning from all of us, just watching us. Really, didn't really ask questions, but he just watched us train and watched how we hit, how we practiced. I don't know if that had an impact on him. It doesn't matter. He was there.
Take some credit.
So I just like to say that I did know him before he got to the big leagues. But I did throw BP to him for a couple of years as well. So I've got to know him really well, and I know his dream was to play for the Toronto Blue Jays, and I was always surprised why it hadn't really happened.
Me too, buddy.
As soon as Cincinnati released, he was gone from Cincinnati, I can't believe it didn't happen instantly.
Right.
The guy is on fire. He wants to be a Blue Jay. He's got the most confidence of anyone I've ever been around in baseball. Like, he's so prepared to thrive in this environment. He'd be a 30 homer guy. Like, it would almost be a no brainer that the Blue Jays.
You'd think so, but remember who made the call that made it happen. I understand Joey called Blue Jays management to make that happen.
Yeah,
it's bizarre to me that it wasn't the other way around.
No, I know. I think enough whispers from Joey were getting around that he wanted to be a Blue Jay, and
I don't think he was shy about it.
Yeah, like, let's do this. Why are we not doing this? And it is the right move. Like, the Blue Jays need a Joey Votto. Like, it would be, I believe it would take him over the top. Like, they would do well in the playoffs with a Joey Votto around.
And even from just strictly a PR standpoint, strictly PR. Like, imagine that moment when he makes his debut at the Sky Dome there, and you got that new remodeled Sky Dome. I mean, come on. But in I don't know, let's say he plays a year at the Blue Jays, and now we're next year. What is that? 2025. He's 41 years old. He still likes playing in Toronto because he's that kind of guy. He loves playing professional ball. Hey, Christy Pitts is home for you, Joey Votto, 2025. Just tell me it's possible.
It is possible because I've
There you
seen
go.
ex-big leaguers do it. So it can happen.
By the way, Andrew Ward had a question. He says, would you consider writing a book about your life in baseball? Because you are a tremendous Canadian story.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to. I have so many things that have gone on, and
Yeah.
when I talk more and more, I can reach in and find like a bag of like so many things that have happened and how it happened and how lucky I was that it happened. And there's so much that I would love to tell.
Well, Rob, I feel like this is tip of the iceberg stuff. Like we've met each other. We had our first initial chat, but there's so many stories left to hear from you, and this will not be your last Toronto Mike appearance. I promise you that.
No, I would love to come back. Got many more times, actually.
Yeah. And I'll see you on May 12th. So we're going to, apparently, Rod and I were joking, we're going to get sick of each other this summer. I'm going to see quite a bit of you because I'm going to make sure I say hello to FOTM Rob Butler every time I come to see the Toronto Maple Leafs play ball at Christy Pitts this summer. Can't wait to see you there, buddy.
Yeah, no, me too. And Mother's Day, they're giving out flowers, carnations to all the moms, and they have some other promotions that are going to happen. It's going to be a great first day.
And that brings us to the end of our 1,458th show. You can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky. I'm at Toronto Mike. What's the best way to follow what's going on in the Rob Butler universe? Which social media app? Give me a way to learn what's going on with Rob Butler.
You can find me on Instagram, on Twitter. It's robbutlerprobaseball.com. Other than that, that's pretty much the only way you can find me. I try to stay.
Or you'll find him at Christy Pitts.
Or yeah, come to Christy Pitts. But yeah, that's where I'm found online, and to sign up for anything I'm doing or see what we're doing.
Much love to all who made this possible. That's Great Lakes Brewery. That's Palma Pasta. Don't leave without your lasagna. That's recyclemyelectronics.ca. That's Raymond James Canada. That's the Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team. And Ridley Funeral Home. See you all tomorrow. I've got to go to my calendar to find out that Jason Wilson is making his Toronto Mike debut, and he'll be joined by Kevin Shea, a beloved FOTM. See you all then.